How to reset the wet egg. Let's make this camera set up so you can see the counter. All right, so to start with, this is what it looks like. You've now seen several pictures of it, right? And there are a couple pieces to it, right, to the system I use. So here's the plate with the bowl. Here's our little guardian spirit. Oh. And here, off camera, you can see is a huge chunk of Himalayan pink salt, right? So we have a counter. It's near our front door, so our kitchen, when you walk into our home, you're walking into the kitchen, basically. So there's a bar height counter right here, over here, you can see, and that's where this is eventually going to end up, right? So I'm going to show you what it looks like now, right? It's a plate, right? It's got an egg and a bunch of stuff on it. The first thing I'm going to do is take a colander that I don't use for food. I'm going to dump this whole thing into the colander. I lied. The first thing I'm going to do is throw out the egg. So this egg's been here for about 2 weeks. You can see it's gooey and gross. And you can also feel that it's much lighter than a regular egg. That's how you can tell when like its goodness has been used up. Right? So first thing I'm going to do is throw out the egg. I personally believe that at this point this food offering is completely used up. Like, the spirits have eaten whatever of it they want, and just like I wouldn't, like, if I had the king over for dinner, I wouldn't, after he was done eating, I wouldn't feel the need to be respectful about his table scraps. Like, as far as I'm concerned, that's what this is table scraps. I'm just gonna crack it and toss it down the garbage disposal. Right, but thank you, egg, you served your purpose. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is take this entire plate, which is full of like stones and coins, and in particular full of like some nasty sticky goo, which is basically a combination of spices, ashes, rum, oil, and honey. I'm going to take the whole plate, dump it in this colander, in this sink, and just give everything a quick rinse. Right, and so there's what the dish looks like after it's been dumped. I'm going to put everything in the colander and just rinse the goo off. Now while I'm doing this, so I'm just rinsing the nasty goo off the plate. Here we go. I didn't cleanse it, right? I'm not trying to remove any sort of like spiritual or magical juju from it. I'm just washing the stickiness off. Like the actual physical goo, right? So now if I could find a paper towel, here we go. Paper towel, I'm just gonna dry it off. So the particular plate that I use, you can see here, it's upside down for you, there we go, right? Has the Veve of Legba on it. It was made by Cat Firesong. I'll find a link to her where you could buy a similar dish if you want. This was a gift to me from a friend. At the time I didn't really do any Legba work, and so this plate really just sat on like my Crossroads altar for a long time until I started using it for this. I don't specifically call Legba in this work, and I've used other plates as well. It's really up to you who you dedicate this work to, like who you work with. I've done it with a variety of Crossroads gods. So right now, I guess I do it with Legba, though honestly, I don't call him. The only real association he has with it is that I use the Veve on his plate. I really think of it as the spirit of Crossroads and the spirit of hospitality rather than any particular god or goddess. Right. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to rinse off all the stuff that was on here, and then I'll bring the colander back up to the counter so you can see what's in it. Right. So I'm just shaking and rinsing. Okay, so I'm going to dump it on the counter, and I will show you what's here. Okay, so here's the stuff that was on the altar. This is not necessarily the same as the stuff that's going to go back onto it, right? So the first thing I do is the actual egg itself. So I've also got, there's some organic components that go on here. So I threw those out, right? So the most important one is the egg. This is just a regular egg that I get at the regular grocery store. I buy organic eggs, but that's really just, that has nothing to do with the magic. I think you can use any kind of egg, right? I like white eggs personally because they're a little easier to write on, but you can use anything, right? So here I've got a regular Sharpie marker. This is a fine point one. But any marker will work. This one's blue, but it really doesn't matter what color. I've used all different colors, right? So what I'm going to do is write my intentions directly onto the egg. So what I usually write is, please distribute our offerings to all. Sometimes I use some variations of that, but that's what I'm going to write today. So please distribute our offerings to all, right? You can see, looks just like that. Right, I'm just gonna put it right here in the middle. I think it's important that you use a permanent marker because otherwise the words come off the first time you pour on it. And even this, you'll see, I don't know if you caught on the old one, I should have showed you, but the words wash off as you sort of continually bathe it in oil. So the next thing I'm going to do, right, is sort of, I'm going to carefully, one object at a time, place objects on the bowl, and I'm going to think about them as I do, right? So every object, I'm going to sort of think about what it is. I'm going to name it out loud. I'm going to talk to the egg, right? Because really what we want to do is sort of inspirit the egg itself, right? So an egg is a container for a thing that wants to come alive. So eggs you buy at the grocery store aren't fertilized. So basically what we're going to do is sort of magically fertilize it so it can grow, right? And like be a living thing. That's the way I think of it anyhow, right? So basically what I'm going to do is talk to the egg and I'm going to give it some things, right? I just sort of intuitively think about what I think it will like. And with practice, I think you'll sort of get a handle on that. If you're using a particular spirit, like the way, like I could be using Legba, then you might want to go with offerings that you know that particular spirit likes, right? So the first thing I know that, I don't know, this spirit really wanted peanuts. That's not so easy because I'm allergic to peanuts, so I dug through some old candy. And I found a Butterfingers, so that's what it's gonna get, because I don't really have peanuts in my kitchen. Okay, so notice that I have picked a candy that's like the Halloween or Easter size ones that are completely sealed, right? That's important if you, I mean, it's not really important from a magical point of view, it's important from like an aesthetics point of view. So this is gonna sit out for like 2 weeks, and we're gonna consistently pour oil and alcohol on top of it, and if you use like a regular candy or an unwrapped candy, it's gonna get super sticky and nasty. Now, I've never had offerings go bad, and except for one time that I'll tell you about on my blog with my grandfather on my ancestor altar, I've never had offerings like attract bugs or anything, so I don't necessarily think that's a big concern, but it looks gross when the candy melts, right? So the first thing I'm gonna offer is a Butterfinger. So to me, I don't really know much about the magic symbolism of peanuts because, like, I don't eat peanuts, but I understand them to be sort of like goodness that comes up from the earth. And I understand them to be like proteiny and fatty and salty. And so that's sort of what I'm thinking about when I offer this. Usually I would not make food offerings of foods I don't eat, so I would sort of imagine what they taste like. And I have like a vague idea what peanuts taste like, and I know what chocolate tastes like, so I imagine that Butterfingers are super delicious, but I don't really know. So the next thing I'm going to offer is some Ceylon cinnamon. So this is not the regular cinnamon that you buy at the grocery store. This is like fancy cinnamon. What you buy at the grocery store isn't actually cinnamon at all, it's cassia. This is a different herb, it smells amazing. I really like it. It's a key ingredient in Abramelin oil, and I found that sort of airy spirits in general really like it. And for me, like, sort of crossroad spirits of like commerce and intersection and like where everything comes together, those are sort of airy, knowledgeable spirits. Because what we really want for this egg offering is a spirit that knows the name of every spirit. So that's a key feature in a lot of God's mythology. Hermes has that power, Odin has that power, Isis has that power. Genuinely, I don't know if Legba does, but since you call him at the beginning of Ritual to Open Gates, I figure he must, but genuinely, like, I don't actually know anything about the Legba, right? I just really like the plate. It was a gift to me from a really awesome witch named Allison, who is a good friend of mine. And the egg spirit seems to really like this plate, so I just run with it. So hopefully Legba doesn't mind, but I mean, he gets rum poured on him every day, so I assume he's chill. Right? But you want a spirit who knows every name. Now, here's an embarrassing story. Here's where I actually sort of learned this practice. There's this fiction book called The Red Tent, which I actually really recommend. So it's set in ancient Canaan and in Egypt. And in the story, this Canaanite girl, Dinah, is in Egypt. And, like, she doesn't speak Egyptian and she doesn't know any of their customs or anything. She's like, fresh off the boat. And she dips her fingers in some wine and puts it on the lips of a statue of Isis and just asks Isis, like, she says, "Dear Isis, I don't know any of the gods here, so, like, here's an offering to you." She's pregnant, so there's an offering to you for, like, the spirit of that my baby be healthy and that, like, my life here be okay. Please just distribute it to everybody, whoever you think is best, because I don't know all you people yet, right? And so that's really how I think of this egg. Like, this is an offering to all the spirits that are in my home, even ones that I don't know are here. And as far as I'm concerned, like, I'm half Greek and half Jewish, so the idea that, like, someone would show up at my house and I would not feed them would drive my ancestors crazy. So I'll feed anyone who shows up. Basically, everybody's welcome until they're not, and I'll talk a little bit about the end, about, like, what happens once they're not, right? So the next thing I've got here is this, large faceted tiger's eye. This is a relatively new addition to my egg. It was like a free gift with purchase when I bought some beads. It doesn't have a hole in it or anything, so I don't really know what it's for, but it's shiny and the spirits seem to like it, so my experience, spirits like shiny things. Especially this kind of spirit, like spirits of the sphere of Mercury, so like not Mercury the god, but Mercury the planet, right? So crossroads spirits, like spirits of communication, right? Like junk that's shiny. So let's see. The next thing I've got here is a tiny metal goat. I love these. I got them as part of a kid's game called Tygo, if you want to look for it on eBay. So that's what it looks like. So I just got this game at Goodwill, and it came with a whole bag full of these little metal goats. Spirits love these because you're sacrificing a goat. So Jason Miller taught me about this thing called a torma, which is basically like Buddhist spirits before they were Buddhist were all bloodthirsty, but then they like found the Dharma and now they just want little cakes that are shaped like blood, I guess. Sorry if that was like a super offensive explanation of torma. I don't really know about torma, but anyway, that's where I got the idea of doing this. So it's just a little metal goat, but like when I offer it, I'm gonna think about like slitting the throat of an actual goat and its blood pouring down over the egg, right? Just bathing it in blood, like maybe a whole field of goats. Ugh, craziness, right? So there's goat, right? I've actually got a couple of goats in here. Like right now, this egg is up to 3. I don't usually take goats away after I offer them. So the egg's got 3 goats whose throats have been slit. It's bathing in their blood. The next thing I've got here is some keys. So small antique keys play a really sort of a central role in my magical practice. And one of the reasons for that is because my late father collected antique padlocks, which meant sort of, by default, he also collected antique keys. So I have a huge supply of antique keys. For me, keys are usually a sign of unlocking things, like opening doors, though I guess a key is also a symbol of locking something. So this sort of unlocks powers, it opens doors, it keeps gates open, right? And here's another tiny little key that serves the exact same purpose, right? Let's see. So the next thing I've got here are coins, right? So usually I have 2 kinds of coins. I have just sort of like regular coins, like regular US coins. Those I usually just wash off and like spend again so they circulate, right? And then I put other coins in as I go, right? So here's just some loose change. I'm gonna just rinse it off and like put it back in my pocket, right? Okay, so I also have what I think of as special coins. In particular, like there's some mercury dimes. Here's a mercury dime, right? Like this. I don't know if you can see it. So technically, these are actually called Winged Liberty. Like that's not supposed to be a picture of Mercury, though it obviously is. They're used a lot in hoodoo, I understand, and I really like them. As you probably know, I do a lot of work with Hermes and Mercury, so I really like these coins. I've got a couple of them in there. I also have some foreign coins because I think of this is about sort of travel and I want to make sure like spirits from all over the world. So whenever like friends come back from abroad, I try and have them bring me coins. So I think some of these are from Germany, some of them are from England, some of them are euros. I think that's a Deutschmark. Right, so those are all about travel, right? So the next thing I see here is this brass. It's like an African brass trade bead. So there's a story about this. So I was at the flea market this time, and there was the most attractive man I have ever seen. Man, it was probably like 22 years old. I was younger in this story. And he was selling like African trade goods, and he had this statue of an elephant, and he and I were talking about the elephant, and he just kept giving me free stuff, which I thought was cool, but genuinely, like, did not even remotely understand that that guy was flirting with me until I told this story to a friend the next day, and she was like, why did you not go out with that guy, Sarah? And I didn't really know, so I went back to the flea market every day for weeks, but he never appeared again. Secretly, I believe he was probably a genie, because I guess I'm a racist. I don't know. Anyway, he disappeared. I have a bunch of trade beads. This is one of the many trade beads he gave me. So this is sort of like my good luck in love trade bead. Yeah, there's that. Okay, so let's see. This is another bead that I got from that same guy. It's got an eye on it. I don't know if you can see. So I think of this as like sort of an all-watching eye. Other people apparently think of it as really phallic, which I guess I'm good with too, so I'm gonna put that one on. So notice that what I'm doing as I lay things on is I'm really taking the time to think about each object and sort of what it does and how it relates to giving things away, right? So here I've got a collection of all-seeing eye beads. I really use these a lot. So these help the egg sort of identify spirits that are coming in, right? And so there's two kinds. There's these little turquoise ones, which a cousin brought back from Greece for me, on a necklace, and then the necklace broke, so I sort of rebeaded it, and I had some extra beads left, so they go here. These are a different kind of all-seeing eye bead, right? These, my ex-boyfriend, then boyfriend, brought me back from Turkey, right? Okay. So let's see, next thing I've got here is a Herkimer diamond, which is a kind of quartz that sort of comes up out of the Atlantic Ocean, right? So this is a stone I collected from the beach. I genuinely love the Atlantic Ocean. I do a lot of work with it. I sort of understand it to be associated with the Titan Okeanos. So I'll tell you about Okeanos some other time. So this is sort of the spirit of the ocean, and this sort of Okeanos, I guess, is the Titan he was originally a great river that encircled the entire world in Greek mythology, and sort of at one point he was sort of associated with like rivers, and then he was associated with the Mediterranean, and then as Greek culture spread, he was always sort of the deep, far away water, so he became over time to be associated with the Atlantic Ocean and the Indian Ocean. But he's sort of the spirit of the deep unknown that encircles the world, so I think of him now a lot as a god of outer space as well. So I guess he's like a deep elder god, but only not scary. I don't know. I do a lot of work with the gods before the gods of civilization. Ereshkigal, the flint goddess, and anyway, let me talk about this one. So I actually don't know what this stone is called. right? It might be a kind of obsidian. What it really looks like is sort of reverse snowflake obsidian. I really don't know what it's called, so if you do, please tell me. But to me, this bead is all about snakes. Like, it sort of looks like snake skin, and so this is sort of a snake that lives here, and it sort of ties... Snakes run through a lot of the gods that I think of when I do this, right? So Okeanos is like a giant river that encircles the world, and that sort of connects him with the Ouroboros, right? So right now I'm sort of imagining like a giant Ouroboros snake, kind of like encircling the whole egg and sort of enlivening it, right? Okay, so the next thing I've got here is this weird little brass thing. I don't really know what it is, actually. Like, it came with some jewelry that I got as a gift one time. It's like a little cast brass octopus angel thing. I don't know. So I just think of it as a little, like, flying tentacle angel that sort of flies around here and, you know, be's good. Last thing I've got here is that I'm going to put on today, I think that used to be on here, is this white rock. So if you remember a couple of weeks ago, I guess now, maybe a month and a half ago, I went to a conference in Maryland. I had to drive through a blizzard, and so I posted a ritual for making a travel protective stone. So this is the stone that I used. So there's a little chant that goes with the stone. It goes Hermes, Hodios, Mercury stone. Hermes, Hodios, Mercury stone. So I'm just going to sort of tuck that in there like that. Next thing I'm going to put on is some beads of frankincense. This is just regular frankincense. Right, it's going to slowly dissolve as I pour things over it. So there's some stuff here you can see that was on here that's not going to go back on. It's just because, like, I don't know, I'm not feeling these particular items right now. It's a collection of beads and marbles and some other random stuff. So now I'm going to look sort of through my random jar of trinkets and see what else I find. Right, so let's see. I've got a little chunk of amethyst here, but I don't think I want to use that. Got a metal tiger that's also from that game. Here I've got a little brass dolphin, I guess. I think I'm going to use that for some Aphrodite work later, maybe. I don't know. Some more rocks and keys. And I think this is sort of good the way it is, right? So next thing I'm going to do is pour some Abramelin oil over it. So I make my own Abramelin oil. You can see this batch is like extremely red. I'm not really sure why. Right, so this hasn't been filtered yet, so I'm just going to pour some over. Right, if you want to see, I think it's the cinnamon that made it really red. If you want to see the recipe for Abramelin oil, it's on the blog somewhere. I'll put a link. Right, so next thing I'm going to do is some honey, but I don't know where my honey went. Hold on. I think it's on the Aphrodite order. Okay, so I assume this happens to other people as well when they're making offerings, that every once in a while Spirit will see something, it's like, want. So while I was getting the honey, I also saw this olive leaf powder. I don't know what to tell you about it. Like, I just got the sense that I should put some olive leaf powder on here, so I'm going to, but I'm going to put it on at the end after I put the wet stuff on, because it'll stick a little better. So next thing I'm going to pour is honey, right, to sweeten the egg. New honey, apparently. I don't know where my old honey went, but this'll do. Okay, so I'll put some honey over the whole thing to sweeten everything. I'm going to put some olive oil to keep things lubricated. going to pour out a good shot of rum over everything. So the rum is sort of the actual offering, right? It's not always rum. I just use all different kinds of spirits. So the thing about the egg for me is I don't drink a lot, and neither does my roommate. But whenever one of us pours a drink in the house, like part of that drink, you need to put a splash on the egg so that sort of so the egg gets fed basically every day, right? So as I said, the last thing I'm going to do is sprinkle some olive powder over top. A lot of times I get requests for different spices. Because my best friend is an herbalist, I keep a pretty good apothecary, like a pretty well-stocked herbal cabinet. But I just find that, like, if you're quiet for a little while, you know how when you want to eat something, like you've kind of got the munchies, but you don't know exactly what it is, and you just kind of open the fridge and stare at it for a while? I find if you do that while talking, like while you're working with a spirit, you can sometimes get a sense of what the spirit wants as well, right? So the final thing I'm going to do is blow on it. For me, usually, like, sort of whenever I want to move energy or power or whatever, like magic, out of my body and into the world, like breath is my sort of usual way to do it. I think most people do some kind of like out of their hands or whatever. I don't really do it that way. And I just got a face full of olive leaf powder because I don't know what I was expecting when I blew on a thing full of powder. Okay, so this is pretty much done. I'm gonna set it. Oh, one last thing. So this is Saint Germain. It's an elderflower liqueur, and I find that fairies and land spirits love this stuff. Just love it, right? So I'm gonna pour out a little bit of this specifically for fairies and land spirits who, like, I've been working with recently. So I'm gonna make a special that sort of can be distributed to all fairies and land spirits and anybody else who really is sort of craving that elder juju. I've been working with elder sort of as a tree a lot lately, right? So this is all done. I'm just gonna set it on the counter up here out of sight, right? I'm gonna move this. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is this little guy, right? So this is a little plastic statue of Toothless from How to Train Your Dragon, right? He's a little protector spirit for us. So basically he watches over the egg, and he's kind of like the bouncer. Like, he doesn't keep people out, right? He kicks people out if they start to cause trouble. And so what I'm going to do is just anoint him with a little bit of dragon blood oil. You can see that I will need to be making dragon blood oil pretty soon. Here we go. Yeah. Was a good dragon. Yes, you are. Oh, so good, so fierce. Yeah. Mwah. All right, so I'm just going to set him to sort of look over the egg. So I know you can't see it. This is basically how I'm going to set it up. Just like that. And I'll take a picture of it for you in situ once we're done. Right. And so the final thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to talk a little bit about this giant salt lamp. So technically this is a lamp that's got a light bulb in it, but I actually never used that part. In fact, I took the light bulb out and the cord out, but you can see here's what the bottom looks like. This is just a giant hunk of salt, basically, and I put it directly behind the egg dish, behind the dragon, and sort of between it and the rest of the house. So it's basically sort of like spirits are all out in the foyer, but like some of that chaos sort of gets sucked up here. I also like to have this big hunk of salt by the door. So when I come home, especially if I've had a rough day or anything, I just kind of like pet it and like let the salt absorb whatever nastiness I may have picked up over the day. So again, this isn't to keep spirits from entering. It's not like I put a giant circle of salt. It's just to sort of like damp down any like badness. It just sort of helps keep the balance, right? And so, and when I need to ground into something, this is usually what I ground into, right? And one of the things I like about these big hunks of salt is they slowly wither away. So like, you know when it's done.